Hey everyone, Chang here and welcome to my channel. Now in a previous video I went over why when we're learning addition or trying to relearn addition, it's better to actually add from left to right rather than the usual school-taught method of right to left, right? So of course, with our next video, it's going to be kind of short, but with subtraction, the same logic applies. It's always best to subtract from left to right rather than right to left. Now, other than just focusing on left to right and right to left, there's actually two strategies I really want to show you guys in terms of subtraction that may help you, I guess you could say, increase your speed when you need to subtract numbers. So, for example, these are fairly easy problems. But the two ways of approaching it is basically, one, you subtract a similar amount that's a lot easier and then the extra, right? The other one is you subtract too much and then you add it back. So what do I mean by that? So for example, let's look at the first problem really quickly. We have 54 minus 23. The first approach is 54 minus 20, right? So I ignore the 3 first, okay? So that gives me 34. That's simple. So we just got rid of the 20. Now, of course, that's not the problem. We have 23. So what we're going to do with this result is we're going to subtract the remaining 3 that we need to take off. And just like that, we solve this problem. Now, this is wonderful. It's easier because 54 subtract 20 instantly is, I guess you could say, in terms of mental computation, is a lot quicker than having to do 20 and 3 at the same time. So after you subtract it and you know it's 34, just subtracting 3 should be simple. Now, the other approach is the one I actually prefer, is usually you subtract too much and then you add it back, because I just love addition more than subtraction, you know, my biases. So for example, 54, instead of minus 23 or minus 20 in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to minus 30. That is simple for me. 54 minus 30 is just 24. Now, that's too much though, because remember, our original problem, we want to subtract 23. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to add what's left or what we accidentally took out, right? So since it's 30 and the original was 23, that's 7. So what we have to do is add 7, give it back, and then what we get is the same answer. So that's two different ways. Now with this problem, right, not necessarily one is better than the other, but this next problem, you're going to see how certain situation, one strategy might be quicker and the other strategy might not be so quick. But it's still just personal preference. Alright, so for the second problem, 85 minus 29, notice this. I'm going to go with 85 minus 20. And some of you guys might be screaming that's not the best strategy. Yeah, it's probably not, but it still works, right? You have 65. Then what you're going to subtract next is going to be the 9. So 65 minus 9, which is fairly simple. What is that? That's 56. And there it is, right? That's your answer. Now let's use the second strategy and notice that actually that's a lot easier. So 85 minus 30, right? A little over, still easy. And notice that, I guess you could say the unspoken strategy or hint is that I'm always jumping into tens because tens is just easier. So 85 minus 30 in this case is what? 55. But 30 is too much because we wanted to subtract 29. So we subtracted too much. Plus 1, the one that we subtracted, and then we get 56 again. So even though not that drastically different, this is a little easier than that. But of course, a lot of the subtraction problem that you're going to encounter is not something so simple. So let's at least do 3-digit subtraction. All right, so here we have 3-digit subtraction. Now here's the thing. I would recommend always practicing both strategies. You want to get good at both because guess what? Once you get good at both, your brain is going to instantly just choose one over the other, and then you're going to be able to solve these questions very quickly. But of course, that's not what we're trying to do. We got to get used to the strategy. So the first strategy, once again, you subtract a little under and then continue the rest, right? So like this, 685, you're going to subtract 300 first. And that gives us what? 385. Then you can subtract 50, which should be fairly simple, right? That's going to be 335. And then you're going to subtract 6, which is going to give us what? 329. Just like that, you solve this problem. Now, of course, the second strategy is we're going to subtract a little over and then start adding things back. And that might be a little more difficult or easier depending. I love addition once again, but you also have to remember how much you're losing, right? So in this case, 685, and then you're going to subtract 400 now. That's going to be 285, right? 285, And that's where it gets a little tricky if you don't realize right away. This is 44. That's how much over that you're subtracting. So you got to add 44 again. Right? And that one should be simple at this point, right? That's 3, 2, 9. And just like that, boom, boom. Same answer, different strategies. All right, so our second problem of 3-digit subtraction, we should do this a little quicker now at this point, right? 754, we're gonna subtract, what is that? 500, that's gonna give us 254, then we're gonna subtract 30, that's gonna give us 224, then we're gonna subtract 9, that's gonna give us what? 215. Just like that, we solve this problem. Now, let's try to do it with the over method. 754 minus 600, that's gonna give us 154. Now, when we look at this, how much did we, I guess you could say, subtract over? That's 61, right? So we have to add 61 here. That's gonna be what? 215, and there it is, right? Same thing, 215. So for the next problem, of course, I'm gonna flip it around because we don't want a situation where it's like, okay, well, I knew the answer. That's why I knew it's gonna be add 61. Let's just try it and then see where we go. All right, so for this problem, 827 subtract 614. We're gonna use the second strategy first by subtracting over. That's gonna be 827 minus 700. That's gonna be 127. Then we gotta add the extra that we accidentally subtract. In this case, what is that? That's 86. There it is. That's gonna be what? 213. Okay, so let's just check it with the other way. So it's going to be 827 minus 600, which gives us basically 227 minus 10, which is going to be 217, minus 4, which is going to be 213. All right, cool. So the answer is still the same. All right, so hopefully you guys can see this. Now, there's always a give and trade for this, right? Notice that at least for the first strategy, there's really not much of, I guess you could say, I wouldn't say mental math, but more like you don't have this underlying notion of trying to figure out things in between. It's very straightforward. You're just subtracting from left to right, starting with the hundreds, then the tens, then the ones. Of course, if it's bigger, you know, thousands, tens, ones, or thousands, hundred, tens, one, and so on and so forth, right? And the second strategy is a tad bit tricky when you can't immediately see how much you're missing, right? That takes practice, but I like the second strategy just because, one, I'm used to that, and I practiced it for a while, so it does take practice. The other thing is I just tend to love addition more than subtraction just by nature because I guess I learned addition first and that's just the one that sticks. But either one works. So there's the subtract a little bit or as close as possible and then take it one step at a time, or you subtract over and then try to basically replenish or re-add the excess of how much you subtract. So hopefully this helps. I'm just thinking about this as 2 strategies to further improve your subtraction game. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you in the next video.